The observation deck was chaos. Half the crowd celebrated while the other half demanded explanations. Betting slips were being torn up. Arguments broke out in a dozen different languages. Through it all, the score display remained unchanged. Taiho, 891 points. RX Lean stood in the arena, staring at the display as if looking at it long enough would change the numbers. His plasma lance hung loosely in his hands. For the first time in his life, he had been defeated in a combat simulation, defeated by a human with a primitive weapon. In the observation deck, Instructor Velthrax raised one of his 4 arms. The crowd slowly quieted. Cadet RX Lean. The instructor's voice echoed through the arena. Do you accept the results? RX Lean's jaw tightened. I demand a review. The scoring system may be biased toward certain weapon types. This result cannot be legitimate. Velthrax's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. The scoring system is standardized across all weapon platforms. However, he paused, studying the secondary metrics on his display. I propose a modification. Taiho, who had been quietly reloading his magazines, looked up. What kind of modification? The original parameters tested your weapons against targets, but targets do not fight back. Velthrax gestured with 2 of his arms. I propose a direct engagement. You will face each other in combat. This will definitively prove which weapon and which warrior is superior. The crowd erupted in cheers. This was what they wanted to see. Hana jumped to her feet in the observation deck. That wasn't part of the original agreement. But RX Lean was already nodding. I accept. My honor demands satisfaction. All eyes turned to Taiho. He knew he could refuse. He had won the original challenge fair and square. But he also knew that refusing would undermine everything he had just proven. The aliens would say he was afraid. They would say his victory was luck. I accept, Taiho said quietly. Velthrax nodded. The engagement will use training-grade weapons that register hits but cause no actual harm. The combat zone will be reduced to 200 meters, close-quarters urban warfare. First to register 3 hits wins. You have 1 hour to prepare. Taiho returned to the preparation area where Hana and Nari were waiting. You don't have to do this, Nari said immediately. You've already won. You've proven your point, have I? Taiho began checking his rifle's action. RX Lean thinks my victory was a fluke. Half the crowd probably agrees with him. If I walk away now, nothing changes. If you lose, you'll be expelled, Hana reminded him. I know. And you're still going to fight? Taiho looked at both of them. My grandfather faced 3 pirate crews to defend our colony. He didn't walk away when the odds were bad. He fought because it was necessary. This is necessary. Nari closed her eyes and took a breath. Then at least listen to advice. RX Lean is not just skilled, he's desperate now. Losing to you has damaged his reputation. He will be aggressive and unpredictable. Good, Taiho said. Desperate opponents make mistakes. The hour passed quickly. Taiho modified his rifle to use training rounds, bullets that would register as hits on the sensor systems but wouldn't actually injure anyone. He loaded fresh magazines and ran through mental simulations of the upcoming fight. When the time came, both cadets returned to the arena. The combat zone had been reduced as promised, a tight maze of buildings and streets where long-range advantages disappeared. This favored RX Lean's plasma lance, which excelled at close-range rapid fire. The entire academy watched in tense silence. Begin, Velthrax commanded. RX Lean charged forward immediately. This was different from his approach in the first match. Now he was hunting, aggressive and direct. His plasma lance sent training bolts through windows and doorways, forcing Taiho to move. But Taiho didn't meet him head-on. Instead, he melted into the urban terrain, using shadows and cover the way his grandfather had taught him. Where RX Lean's weapon lit up the battlefield with bright flashes, Taiho remained invisible. The rifle's report cracked through the arena. RX Lean's shoulder registered a hit, the first point to Taiho. RX Lean spun toward the sound, but Taiho was already gone. The Zentari fired at the position where the shot had come from, but found only empty space. Where is he? RX Lean muttered, checking his helmet sensors. But the sensors showed almost nothing. No energy signature. No heat bloom. The human's weapon was nearly invisible to modern detection systems. Taiho moved through the buildings, keeping his profile low. He found a position with sight lines through multiple pathways and waited. Patience was the hunter's greatest weapon. RX Lean appeared at the end of an alley, moving carefully now. Taiho aimed, accounting for the angle and distance. He fired. The bullet passed through a narrow gap between two buildings and struck RX Lean in the side. Second point to Taiho. Now RX Lean was truly desperate. He abandoned caution entirely and rushed forward, firing continuously. The training bolts from his plasma lance lit up the street like a storm. If Taiho was anywhere in that area, he would be hit. But Taiho wasn't there. He had anticipated the desperate charge. While RX Lean focused forward, Taiho had circled through the buildings and now flanked him from the side. He took careful aim, then he hesitated. RX Lean was completely exposed, focused on the wrong direction. An easy shot, but something made Taiho pause. His grandfather's voice echoed in memory. A true warrior knows when to shoot and when to teach. Instead of taking the winning shot, Taiho spoke. RX Lean, behind you. The Zentari spun around, plasma lance raised. For a moment, both warriors faced each other at close range. Why did you warn me? RX Lean demanded. Because winning by ambush wouldn't prove anything, Taiho said. You think I won before through luck or through tricks? I want you to understand it's not the weapon. It's how you use it. RX Lean's expression was hard to read, but his posture shifted slightly. Then face me directly, not yet. One more lesson first. Taiho pointed to the building behind RX Lean. That wall you're standing next to. See the metal support beam? RX Lean glanced at it, confused. Yes? Watch, Taiho fired. The bullet struck the metal beam at a precise angle. It ricocheted, changed direction, and struck RX Lean's weapon hand. The third and final point. The match was over. RX Lean stood frozen, staring at his hand where the sensor registered the hit. Then he looked at the metal beam, understanding flooding his features. You made the bullet bounce. You changed its direction after firing. Ricochet, Taiho said. Something energy weapons can't do. Your plasma dissipates on contact. My bullets remain solid objects that follow physics. Slowly, RX Lean lowered his plasma lance. The pride and arrogance were gone from his expression. In their place was something different, curiosity. Your weapon requires no power source, he said quietly. Just chemistry and physics. And it works in electromagnetic dampening fields? In radiation storms? It works anywhere. It works when everything else fails. RX Lean was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. He bowed, a deep formal bow that his species reserved for honored opponents. I was wrong, he said loudly enough for the entire academy to hear. I judged your weapon and your people based on assumptions. I see now that complexity is not the same as effectiveness. The observation deck erupted in noise again, but this time the tone was different. Not mockery, but discussion, debate, fascination. Instructor Velthrax descended from the observation deck to the arena floor. His 6 eyes studied both cadets. Cadet Kim, he said formally. Cadet RX Lean, you have both demonstrated important lessons today. He turned to address the crowd in the observation deck. For 4,000 years, we have refined our weapons in one direction. More energy, more power, more sophistication. In doing so, we created a galaxy where every defense is optimized against the same type of threat. Cadet Kim has reminded us that sometimes the answer is not more advanced technology. Sometimes the answer is appropriate technology. Professor Krelvan joined them on the arena floor. I will be revising my curriculum, he announced. We will add a new section, Asymmetric Warfare and Alternative Technologies, because Cadet Kim has proven that the galaxy's forgotten knowledge may be as valuable as its cutting-edge developments. Over the next weeks, something remarkable happened at the academy. Cadets began asking Taiho about his rifle. They wanted to understand how it worked, how he aimed without computer assistance, how he accounted for wind and distance using only his eyes and experience. RX Lean became a frequent visitor to the firing range. His pride had been wounded, but his curiosity was stronger. He asked endless questions about kinetic weapons, about ballistics, about Earth's military history. Your world never stopped fighting with these weapons, RX Lean said one day while watching Taiho practice. For your entire history, you have refined the art of projectile warfare. That is knowledge the galaxy lost millennia ago. We're good at war, Taiho admitted. It's not something to be proud of, but it is something we understand. Hana joined the Academy's marksmanship club, which Taiho had somehow accidentally founded. Several alien species expressed interest in learning about conventional weapons as alternative options. The commandant of the academy issued a formal statement. Humanity would be studied not as primitive newcomers, but as a species that retained specialized knowledge. Earth's military history represented a unique perspective that could benefit the entire galaxy. The simulation arena was massive. Holographic projectors created a realistic urban battlefield, ruined buildings, scattered vehicles, and complex terrain that offered both cover and danger. The entire academy had gathered in the observation deck above, hundreds of species all pressed together to watch the unusual match. Taiho stood at his starting position, checking his rifle one last time. He had 20 rounds in the magazine and 4 more magazines in his pouches. 100 total bullets. It seemed like a lot until he remembered that RX Lean's plasma lance could fire continuously for hours. Across the simulation area, at the opposite end of the kilometer-square grid, RX Lean made his own preparations. His plasma lance glowed with ready power. Even from this distance, Taiho could see the confident way the Zentari moved. Instructor Velthrax's voice echoed through the arena. "Cadets, your task is simple. Destroy as many targets as possible within the time limit. Targets include stationary drones, moving combat bots, and hardened bunker positions. You will be scored on accuracy, speed, and tactical efficiency. The match duration is 30 minutes. You may begin on my mark." In the observation deck, Hana sat with Nari and a few other humans who worked at the academy. Around them, alien cadets placed bets. The odds favored RX Lean at 50 to 1. "This is madness," Nari whispered. "He shouldn't be doing this." "Too late now," Hana replied, her eyes fixed on Taiho below. "Mark." Velthrax's voice boomed. RX Lean burst into motion immediately. He moved with practiced efficiency, his plasma lance firing in rapid bursts. The first target, a stationary drone, exploded in a flash of blue energy. Then another. Then another. His score climbed rapidly on the display screens. The crowd cheered with each kill. Taiho moved differently. He stayed low, using cover, making no unnecessary movements. Where RX Lean announced his presence with brilliant plasma flashes, Taiho remained almost invisible. He spotted his first target, a drone hovering near a ruined building. He took a breath, let it out halfway, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against his shoulder. The sharp crack of the shot echoed through the arena, a sound most aliens had never heard before. Several species in the observation deck flinched at the unfamiliar noise. The drone sparked and fell from the sky. "What was that sound?" someone in the crowd asked. "The chemical propellant igniting," another responded. "Primitive but effective." Taiho moved to his next position. He could hear RX Lean's plasma lance firing in the distance, a steady rhythm of destruction. But Taiho didn't rush. He found another target, aimed carefully, and fired. Another perfect hit. The display showed scores. RX Lean was ahead, but Taiho was keeping pace. In the observation deck, Instructor Velthrax studied the tactical display with growing interest. He could see RX Lean's energy signature blazing across the battlefield, marking his position clearly. But Taiho's signature was barely visible. The rifle produced minimal heat and no electromagnetic emissions. On sensors designed to detect energy weapons, the human was nearly invisible. "Interesting," Velthrax muttered. 10 minutes into the match, RX Lean had destroyed 47 targets. Taiho had destroyed 38. The crowd was excited. The match was closer than expected, though most still assumed RX Lean would pull ahead. Then both cadets reached the hardened bunker section. These targets were designed to test advanced tactics. Each bunker was protected by an energy shield that could withstand sustained fire. Standard doctrine was to maintain continuous plasma fire until the shield overloaded. It usually took 15 to 20 seconds per bunker. RX Lean encountered his first bunker and did exactly as he was taught. His plasma lance lit up the shield with brilliant blue energy. The shield glowed, flickered, and finally failed. 14 seconds. The bunker exploded. Another point for the Zentari. Taiho approached his first bunker more carefully. He studied it from cover, noting the shield emitters, the weapon ports, and the ventilation systems. All bunkers needed cooling. That meant intake vents, and vents were designed to allow air through, which meant they couldn't be fully shielded. He found the vent, a narrow opening maybe 5 centimeters wide. He aimed carefully, accounting for distance and wind. Then he fired. The bullet passed through the vent opening, ricocheted off the interior structure, and struck the bunker's power core. The bunker exploded. 2 seconds from first shot to destruction. The observation deck went silent. Did he just... Someone started. Through the cooling vent, Velthrax said, his multiple eyes focused on the replay. He bypassed the shield entirely by shooting through a gap measured in centimeters. The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered. Some expressed disbelief. But everyone was now watching Taiho more carefully. Hana grabbed Nari's arm. "Did you see that?" "I saw it," Nari replied, smiling. "But I still don't believe it." RX-Lean heard the explosion from Taiho's section and glanced at the score display. The gap was narrowing. He increased his pace, moving more aggressively through the urban terrain. His plasma lance fired continuously, destroying targets with practiced efficiency. But something was bothering him. Where was the human? RX-Lean's helmet display should have been marking the human's position based on weapon signatures, but the sensors showed almost nothing. It was as if Taiho was barely there. Taiho continued his methodical approach. He moved between cover points, always aware of his surroundings. Each shot was deliberate. He wasted no ammunition on targets he couldn't confirm. And he used the environment to his advantage in ways that energy weapon users rarely considered. When he encountered a target behind partial cover, he didn't try to shoot through the cover like RX-Lean would. Instead, he fired at a metal surface beside the target. The bullet ricocheted at a calculated angle and struck the target from the side. One shot, one kill. The crowd in the observation deck was now split. Half still cheered for RX-Lean, but the other half was becoming fascinated by Taiho's unusual tactics. Professor Krelvan stood beside Velthrax, watching the tactical display. His approach is completely different from standard doctrine. He's not trying to overwhelm targets with firepower. He's treating each engagement as a puzzle to solve. Sniper methodology, Velthrax said, a combat style that fell out of favor when energy weapons became dominant. Energy weapons are too visible for true sniper work. But his rifle... The instructor trailed off, thinking. At the 20-minute mark, scores were nearly tied. RX-Lean had used 30% of his weapon's power charge. Taiho had fired 68 rounds. He had 32 bullets left. Both cadets entered the final challenge area simultaneously, a complex of buildings designed for close-quarters combat. Multiple targets were positioned at various heights and distances, some mobile, some stationary. RX-Lean moved through the complex like a storm. His plasma lance painted the air with blue fire. Targets exploded left and right. His score climbed rapidly. Taiho took a different approach. He climbed to a high floor in one of the buildings, found a position with good visibility, and established what his grandfather would have called a sniper's nest. From here, he had sight lines to multiple targets. He began picking them off systematically. One shot, one target, move, adjust, fire, move again, never staying in the same position long enough to be tracked. The rifle's report echoed through the complex, sharp, distinct cracks that made aliens unused to such sounds instinctively flinch. But by the time anyone looked toward the sound, Taiho had already moved. In the observation deck, a betting shift occurred. The odds were now 3-1 in favor of RX-Lean. Still favored, but no longer considered certain. Nari leaned forward, gripping the railing. "Come on, Taiho." With 5 minutes remaining, both cadets encountered the final test, the hostage scenario. 3 target drones positioned around a civilian dummy. All 3 targets had to be neutralized without harming the civilian. It was the Academy's most difficult challenge. X-Lean reached his scenario first. He approached cautiously, using minimum power settings on his plasma lance. He angled his first shot carefully. The target sparked and fell. He adjusted for the second target. Another careful shot. Success. The third target was positioned closer to the civilian. RX-Lean took his time, reduced power even further, and fired. The plasma bolt struck the target, but the heat and electromagnetic pulse washed over the civilian dummy. Sensors registered damage to the dummy. Partial credit only. RX-Lean cursed in his native language. Taiho reached his hostage scenario and assessed it from 400 meters away. 3 targets. 1 civilian. No room for error. He chambered a fresh round, settled his breathing, and fired. The first target's head exploded. He worked the bolt, chambered another round, fired. The second target went down. 1 more round, aimed, fired. The third target dropped. The civilian dummy stood untouched. The bullets had passed within centimeters but caused 0 collateral damage. No heat, no electromagnetic pulse, no area effect, just precise mechanical accuracy. The observation deck exploded with noise. Impossible, someone shouted. 3 shots in 2.3 seconds. Velthrax read from the data display. All perfect headshots at 400 meters, with 0 civilian casualties. The timer counted down the final seconds. Both cadets had completed all challenges. The final scores appeared on the display. Xleen, 847 points. Taiho, 891 points. The human had won. The private range hummed with confused maintenance drones. They had been programmed to service energy weapons, not chemical-powered rifles. They kept scanning Taiho's weapon and displaying error messages. Eventually, they gave up and hovered nearby, waiting for instructions they could understand. Taiho sat at a workbench in the corner of the range. In front of him were boxes of brass casings, containers of gunpowder, and trays of bullets. He was hand-loading ammunition, carefully measuring each charge of powder and seating each bullet to precise specifications. The door opened behind him. Hana walked in carrying 2 cups of something that resembled coffee. "I brought you this," she said, setting 1 cup beside him. "It's not real coffee, but it's close enough." "Thanks." Taiho picked up the cup but kept working. Hana watched him measure powder for a moment. "Why are you making your own bullets? The Academy could fabricate ammunition for you." "Because factory ammunition is designed for average conditions. I need ammunition optimized for exactly what I'm facing." Taiho held up a bullet. "Heavier grain for better penetration. Slightly reduced powder charge for less recoil and better control. Each round is adjusted for this specific rifle." "That seems like a lot of work. My grandfather taught me. He said that a weapon is only as good as its ammunition. If you trust your life to something, you should know exactly how it was made." Hana sat down on a nearby bench. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the shields not being configured for projectiles. But even if you're right, our Xleen is still a better fighter than you. He's been training since he was young. His family are warriors going back centuries." "I know. Then why are you so calm?" Taiho set down the bullet he was working on and looked at her. "Can I tell you a story?" "Sure." "When I was 12, my grandfather took me hunting in the wilderness outside our colony. We were tracking a razorback, big predator, nasty teeth. The animal was wounded and dangerous. Grandfather gave me the rifle and told me to make the shot." Taiho paused, remembering. "I was terrified. My hands were shaking. I told him I couldn't do it, that I wasn't ready. You know what he said?" Hana shook her head. "He said, 'Fear is fine. Fear keeps you alert. But fear isn't an excuse for not trying. Take your shot, boy. Make it count." Taiho smiled slightly. "I took the shot. 1 bullet. The razorback went down clean. And my grandfather taught me something important that day." "What?" "That confidence doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you shoot anyway." Before Hana could respond, the range door opened again. Nari Choi entered, looking worried. "Taiho, we need to talk," she said. "What's wrong?" Nari glanced at Hana, then back to Taiho. "I did some research on our Xleen. His family history is even more impressive than I thought. His great-grandfather commanded the Zentari fleet during the Border Wars. His father is currently a strategic advisor to the Galactic Council. Xleen himself has won every combat simulation he's ever entered." "I already accepted the challenge," Taiho said quietly. "I know, but there's more." Nari pulled out a datapad. "Our Xleen's plasma lance is a family weapon. It's been customized and upgraded for generations. The targeting system is AI-assisted. The power output is 30% above standard models, and he's had 10 years of training with it." Taiho went back to loading his ammunition. "And I have a 100-year-old rifle. This isn't a joke." Nari's voice rose. "If you lose, you'll be expelled. The Academy will use this as evidence that humans aren't ready. It could set back our integration by years. Then I won't lose. How can you be so sure?" Taiho picked up his rifle and checked the action. "I'm not sure. But I'm going to fight anyway, because if I back down now, it won't matter if I'm ready or not. Everyone will think humans are cowards." Nari sat down heavily. "Your grandfather would be proud of your courage. I just hope it's enough." After Nari left, Hana helped Taiho set up targets at various distances. They spent hours running drills. Taiho practiced shooting from different positions, standing, kneeling, prone. He practiced shooting while moving. He practiced quick target transitions. "Your accuracy is impressive," Hana admitted after watching him put 5 rounds through the same hole at 200 meters. "But in the simulation, you'll be moving through complex terrain. Arxline won't stand still and let you shoot him. I know. That's why I'm not planning to fight his way. What do you mean? Tejo ejected the magazine and loaded a fresh one. Arxline will fight like he's been taught. He'll move aggressively, using his weapon's rate of fire and area of effect to overwhelm targets. It's standard Academy doctrine for assault scenarios, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to fight like a hunter, not a soldier. Patient, careful, making every shot count. Tejo chambered around. He's been trained to fight other people with energy weapons. But I'm going to fight like someone from a world where ammunition is precious and every mistake can be fatal. That evening, Tejo received a message on his personal device. The text was brief. Withdraw now, human. Your kind isn't ready for the stars. It was anonymous, untraceable. Tejo deleted it without responding. He lay on his bunk that night, the rifle beside him. Through his window, he could see the stars, millions of them scattered across the darkness. Ships moved between them, carrying species that had conquered space travel thousands of years before humans had even invented agriculture. And here he was, preparing to fight one of them with a weapon that some considered primitive. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was being foolish, clinging to an outdated technology because it was familiar. But then he thought about his grandfather standing against those pirates, 3 crews of raiders with modern weapons and shields, against a handful of colonists with conventional firearms. Everyone had said it was hopeless. The pirates had laughed at their primitive guns. They had stopped laughing when the bullets started flying. The pirates' shields were configured for energy weapons. Their armor was designed to disperse plasma and deflect lasers. They had centuries of tactical doctrine, built around fighting with and against energy-based attacks, but they had no defense against a technology they considered obsolete. Tejo closed his eyes and ran through the simulation in his mind. The urban environment, the multiple target types, the scoring system based on speed, accuracy, and tactical efficiency. Arxline would use his plasma lance's advantages: rapid fire, area effect, long-range accuracy. He would clear sectors quickly, relying on overwhelming firepower. But Tejo would use his rifle's advantages: silent positioning, no energy signature, and precision that required no power source. He would take his time, make each shot perfect, and use tactics that the Academy hadn't taught, because they were considered outdated. Sometimes, the old ways worked because everyone had forgotten to defend against them. 2 more days until the match. Tejo opened his eyes and looked at the rifle beside him. The weapon was old, worn, and simple, but it was also reliable, precise, and proven. His grandfather's words echoed in his memory again. Technology fails. Power runs out. Systems crash. But powder and lead don't argue with you. In 2 days, he would prove those words to an entire galaxy, or he would fail and be sent home in shame. Either way, he would fight. Because that's what his grandfather had taught him. That's what it meant to be human. You took your shot, and you made it count. The lecture hall was enormous, built to accommodate species of vastly different sizes. Tejo sat in the human-sized section, his rifle case on the floor beside him. Other cadets kept their distance, leaving empty seats around him like he carried some contagious disease. Professor Krelvan entered through the main doorway. He was a Vaxian, which meant he looked somewhat like a large insect covered in smooth armor. His voice came through a translator device that made him sound oddly musical. Today we discuss the evolution of weapons technology, the professor began. Over the past 6,000 years, warfare has undergone fundamental changes. We will explore why certain weapons were abandoned and why others became universal. A holographic display appeared above the professor's head. It showed primitive weapons, clubs, spears, bows. Then the progression began. Gunpowder weapons, automatic firearms, missiles, then the jump to energy. Weapons, lasers, plasma, particle beams. The transition away from projectile weapons occurred approximately 4,000 years ago across most civilizations, Krelvan explained. There were many reasons for this shift. Can anyone tell me what they were? Arxline raised his hand. Energy weapons have unlimited ammunition as long as they have power. Correct. What else? They can be adjusted for different targets, another cadet called out. You can stun or kill with the same weapon. Also correct. Other advantages? A small furry alien spoke up. Energy weapons fire at the speed of light. The target cannot dodge once you fire. Excellent point. The professor's antennae twitched with approval. And perhaps most importantly, energy weapons produce no recoil. This means perfect accuracy is possible for species with different body structures. A weapon that kicks backwards might work for humans, but would be useless for species without solid skeletal structures. Taiho listened quietly. Everything the professor said was technically true, but there was another side to the story that no one was mentioning. Now, Krelvan continued, let us discuss why projectile weapons became obsolete. First, they require physical ammunition. This means limited capacity and the need for supply lines. In space warfare, carrying tons of bullets is inefficient when you could carry a single power cell instead. The hologram showed a comparison. A soldier carrying a rifle and ammunition weighed down with heavy magazines. Next to him, a soldier with an energy weapon and a small power pack. The difference was obvious. Second, projectile weapons are vulnerable to environmental factors. Moisture, temperature, atmospheric pressure, all of these affect performance. Energy weapons work consistently in any environment. Taiho thought about his grandfather shooting in the rain, in the freezing cold of New Jeju's winter, in the dust storms that covered the colony. The rifle had worked every time. Third, and most crucial, force fields and energy shields. Modern defensive technology was designed specifically to stop energy-based attacks, but as a side effect, these same shields easily deflect or vaporize physical projectiles. A bullet cannot penetrate a standard shield any more than a thrown rock could. A cadet raised multiple limbs. Professor, if projectile weapons are so useless, why did the human bring one? Laughter rippled through the hall. Taiho felt dozens of eyes turned toward him. Krelvan's translator made a sound that might have been a sigh. Cultural attachment, I assume. Many primitive species cling to traditional weapons even after superior technology becomes available. It is a form of nostalgia. The professor moved on to discuss modern weapon systems, but Taiho's mind was elsewhere. These aliens had been fighting each other with the same weapons for thousands of years. They had optimized their defenses against energy attacks. But what happened when someone used a weapon that their shields were not designed to stop? After the lecture, Taiho headed to the cafeteria. He carried his food tray to an empty table in the corner. Before he could sit, someone appeared beside him. Mind if I join you? It was another human. Her name tag read Hana Yoon. She carried the standard issue Academy plasma rifle on her back. Sure, Taiho said, surprised. Hana sat down across from him. I'm from Mars Colony. Terraforming Section. You? New Jeju, Frontier Territories. I heard what happened at equipment inspection. That took courage. She paused. Or stupidity. I haven't decided which yet. Taiho managed a small smile. Maybe both. Why did you really bring that rifle? And don't give me the cultural heritage excuse. I know our people better than that. Taiho looked around to make sure no one was listening. My grandfather used to say that everyone prepares for the last war, not the next one. These aliens have been fighting with energy weapons for so long that they've forgotten how to fight against anything else. But the shields are designed to stop energy. Plasma has mass and charge. Lasers have photons that can be deflected by electromagnetic fields. Particle beams can be dispersed. But a solid piece of lead traveling at supersonic speed? Taiho shrugged. That's just kinetic energy. Pure physics, Hana frowned. I saw the comparison in class. Energy shields block physical projectiles too. They block them if the shield is configured correctly. But who configures shields for projectile defense anymore? When was the last time anyone in the galaxy faced a bullet? The shields are optimized for energy weapons because that's all anyone uses. That's actually clever. Hana looked at him with new respect. But you're gambling everything on a theory. My grandfather tested it. The pirates who attacked our colony had military-grade shields. They laughed when we opened fire with conventional weapons. They stopped laughing when our bullets went right through their defenses. Before Hana could respond, a shadow fell across their table. RX Lean stood there with several other cadets behind him. Cadet Kim, the Zentari said formally. I wish to issue a challenge. Taiho stood slowly. What kind of challenge? A sanctioned duel in the training halls. You and I will compete in the live fire combat simulation. We will see if your primitive weapon can match my Zentari Mark 7 plasma lance. And if I refuse, RX Lean's expression was difficult to read, but his tone was clear. Then everyone will know that humans are cowards who hide behind excuses. That you brought that weapon for show, not for actual combat. Taiho felt anger flare in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. What are the stakes? If you lose, you withdraw from the academy. You admit that humanity is not ready to stand among the civilized species of the galaxy. Arxline leaned forward. If you somehow win, I will publicly apologize and acknowledge your weapon's effectiveness. Hana grabbed Taiho's arm. Don't do it. This is a trap. He's the top student in our class. His family has produced military commanders for generations, but Taiho was already nodding. I accept your challenge. Arxline's smile was sharp. Excellent. I will make the arrangements with instructor Velthrax. The match will be in 3 days. The Zentari turned and walked away, his followers trailing behind him. Are you insane? Hana demanded. You've been here 3 days. He's been training his whole life. Maybe, Taiho said. But if I back down now, every human who comes after me will be seen as weak. This isn't just about me. It's about proving we belong here. Hana stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. Fine. If you're going to do this, you'll need help. I'll show you the training facilities, and you'd better practice. That night, Taiho stood alone on the firing range. The facility was designed for energy weapons, but it worked well enough for his purposes. He set up targets at various distances and began to shoot. Each shot was deliberate. Each bullet was precious. He checked his breathing, his stance, his trigger control. Everything had to be perfect. The rifle kicked against his shoulder with each shot. The sound echoed through the empty range. And somewhere in that ancient rhythm of firing and reloading, Taiho found his confidence. 3 days. In 3 days, he would show them all what humanity brought to the stars. Taeho Kim stood at the entrance of the Galactic Defense Academy and stared at the massive structure floating in space. The building was larger than any city he had seen back on New Jeju. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports. Aliens of every shape and size walked through its corridors. And somehow he was supposed to belong here. He clutched the worn case in his hands a little tighter. Inside was his grandfather's rifle. The old man had used it to defend their colony when pirates attacked. His father had carried it through the frontier wars. Now it was his turn to carry it into the stars. The orientation hall buzzed with activity. Cadets from across the galaxy gathered in small groups, showing off their weapons and armor. Taiho saw plasma rifles that glowed with inner light. He watched energy blades that hummed with power. One alien student carried what looked like a small cannon that folded into a backpack. New cadets form ranks. A voice boomed across the hall. Instructor Velthrax stepped onto the platform. He was a Krillian, which meant he had 4 arms and stood nearly 3 meters tall. His blue skin was marked with scars from countless battles. His eyes, all 6 of them, swept across the crowd of new students. I am your weapons master, Velthrax announced. For the next 6 months, you will train under my guidance. You will learn to fight. You will learn to survive. You will learn what it means to protect the galaxy. Taiho joined the line of cadets as they filed past for equipment inspection. Each student presented their chosen weapon for approval. The instructor examined plasma rifles, particle beams, and molecular disruptors. He nodded at each one, making notes on his digital pad. Then it was Taiho's turn. He opened his case and pulled out the rifle. The wood stock was scratched and worn. The metal barrel showed signs of age and use, but every part was clean and functional. His grandfather had taught him well. Velthrax stared at the weapon. His multiple eyes blinked in sequence as if he could not believe what he was seeing. What? The instructor said slowly. Is that? It's a rifle, sir, Taiho replied. Modified M14 platform. Chambered in .308 Winchester. A cadet behind him laughed. Then another joined in. Within seconds, the entire hall echoed with laughter. Aliens pointed at the rifle. Some slapped their appendages together in amusement. Others made sounds that Taiho guessed were their version of mockery. A kinetic weapon? A tall, elegant alien stepped forward. His name tag read Arxline. You brought a chemical propellant device to the academy? What's next, a wooden club? A sharpened rock? More laughter filled the hall. Velthrax held up one of his 4 hands. The noise died down. He looked at the rifle again, then at Taiho. This is a projectile weapon, the instructor said. It uses explosive chemicals to launch solid metal at the target. Such weapons were abandoned by most civilizations over 4,000 years ago. Yes, sir, Taiho said calmly. They are inefficient. They require physical ammunition. They have significant recoil. They are loud and crude. Velthrax tilted his head. Why would you bring such a thing here? Because it works, sir, Arxline laughed again. It works? Everything here works, human. But our weapons work better. My plasma lance can fire for 6 hours before needing a recharge. It can adjust power levels for different targets. It has no recoil and perfect accuracy. Your primitive gun cannot compare. Tejo said nothing. He knew arguing would be pointless. Velthrak studied the rifle for a long moment. Then he handed it back to Tejo. You may keep it. I assume it has cultural significance to you. Many species bring traditional weapons as symbols of their heritage, but during combat trials you will be expected to use standard equipment. I plan to use this rifle for the combat trials, sir. The hall erupted in laughter again. Even Velthrax's expression changed to something that might have been amusement. Very well, Cadet Kim. You may use your chosen weapon. Dismissed. Tejo carried his rifle to the barracks. Other cadets whispered and pointed as he passed. He could hear their comments clearly. Primitive, backwards, savage, human. The barracks were divided by species groups, but humans were so new to the academy that Tejo had a small room to himself. He set the rifle case on the bed and opened it again. Inside, along with the weapon, were boxes of ammunition. Each bullet was hand-loaded by his grandfather. The old man had insisted on doing it himself, claiming that factory ammunition could not be trusted. A knock sounded at the door. Come in, Tejo said. A woman entered. She wore the uniform of academy staff, not a cadet. Her name tag identified her as Nari Choi, Cultural Liaison Officer. I heard about what happened in the inspection hall, she said in Korean. It felt good to hear his native language. Are you okay? I'm fine, Tejo replied, also in Korean. I expected worse. They don't understand, Nari said. These aliens have been using energy weapons for so long that they've forgotten why projectile weapons worked in the first place. Do you think I made a mistake bringing it? Nari smiled. Your grandfather defended New Jeju with that rifle. He held off 3 pirate crews with 50 men and conventional weapons. I think he knew what he was doing. The pirates had energy shields, Tejo said quietly, but those shields were designed to stop plasma and lasers. They didn't know how to configure them against bullets. Grandfather shot right through their defenses. Exactly. Nari moved to the door. The combat trials start in 1 week. I suggest you practice, and ignore the other cadets. They'll learn soon enough. After she left, Tejo began cleaning his rifle. He broke it down into its component parts, cleaned each one carefully, and reassembled it. The process was meditative. His hands knew every inch of the weapon. Through his window, he could see the training grounds. Cadets practiced with their energy weapons, filling the air with bright flashes of colored light. Their weapons made humming sounds, crackling sounds, sounds like thunder. They looked impressive and powerful. Tejo loaded a magazine with 20 rounds. Each bullet was brass and lead, simple metal shaped by precise machinery. No power source. No sophisticated electronics. Just chemistry and physics that had been understood for centuries. He chambered a round and set the rifle down carefully. In 1 week, he would show them what this primitive weapon could do. In 1 week, they would learn that sometimes the old ways worked, because everyone had forgotten how to defend against them. Tejo lay back on his bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring more mockery, more laughter. But he had not come here to make friends. He had come here to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. And he would do it with a rifle that was older than most of the starships in orbit. His grandfather's words echoed in his memory. Technology fails, boy. Power runs out. Systems crash. But powder and lead don't argue with you. They just work 1 week. Then they would see.